week two in the books, going down is a loss in the books for me by a solid margin. But how'd you guys do? Let's start off kicking off week two for the Fantasy Bros. How did it go?
For me, I'm either up 100 or down 100, pretty much. Uh, wasn't anything spectacular at all. I just first 2 weeks haven't been great. How about you, John?
No, it definitely was. I almost feel like if it was a good week for you, then like I don't know. I don't want to say you're a fish, but like
No, I know
you
that's what. Yeah,
probably
that's what I'm
are.
saying.
Like because every sharp player got crushed last week, and
Yeah,
I did end up hitting my cash games, but like it was a tilting sweat to the very end. Like I was like when Kelsey got the bonus in the afternoon game, like that's pretty much what did it for me. To make it so that I just absolutely didn't lose my shirt. But overall, happy for the next slate.
yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
I played Alvin Kamara and Houston defense, which was not New England defense, and literally like Alvin Kamara should have just showed up at my house and taken my wallet and walked away. There was never like I was done. That was when I locked in Alvin Kamara. My day was over, and that's all that it was. Like there's nothing left.
No, yeah, I did the same thing in tournaments. I pretty much didn't cash one tournament lineup, and then my cash games, I just made it. Like so, I don't know. It is what it is. It seems like you were just getting like if you didn't play the Patriots defense in Mahomes, like good night, you know. And
Yeah.
if you had Kamara and Houston Texans D, you're also in trouble. So I don't know. Want to hop into this one?
Yeah, how do you guys want to take it? Positions, or do you want to look game by game?
Let's keep it game by game.
All right, let's kick off then with Indianapolis. They are 2.5 point favorites. They are playing Atlanta, 47 point total. I don't know. I am not. I kind of just think that Indy can't keep throwing touchdowns at this rate, given how bad. Like their offense is not a yardage producer, and yardage correlates to touchdowns more than touchdowns do. They're hard to repeat, whereas yardage says like should dictate touchdowns. Jacoby Brissett's throwing touchdowns like a 9% rate. He's not even above average quarterback in the NFL, let alone like a Patrick Mahomes who's not throwing that many touchdowns. Once the touchdown regression hits, this offense is going to be dust. Like, is that wrong?
Well, first, I think you need to watch that tongue when you talk about Bob's boy Jacoby Brissett. But honestly, I don't really have any interest on the Indianapolis side. My interest is really on the Atlanta side, with both the wide receivers being priced down from the Monday night performance. Sorry, Sunday night performance, whichever it was. Calvin Ridley's only 5,300. That is like that's going to be really tough for me not to have like almost lock button on Calvin Ridley, just because I think he's been really good this season, and obviously with Julio Jones on the opposite side, he's going to have a lot of one-on-one situations. We've seen that through the first two games. He's seen a lot of targets, seen a lot of air yards, and he's been producing. So in a good matchup, Calvin Ridley's like one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. What about you, Bob?
Yeah, I like Julio and I like Calvin Ridley, basically for all the reasons you just gave. Another receiver I like in that game is T.Y. Hilton. Have ownership pulled up right now. He's around 8% owned. If he's going to be that low owned in a game where he's at home in a dome, I think it's a good idea to be overweight on Ty if you can. I know it's weird because this is a low total game and they're playing in a dome. Usually these games can kind of get out of hand offensively, so I kind of like this spot for like one-offs of Ridley, one-offs of Julio, or if you just want to run it back with. I think a way to be contrarian this week is probably paying up for two receivers. So if you wanted to go Julio Ty or I don't know, kind of differentiate yourself that way. I guess that's fine.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think my take on this will be probably Julio, just because your wide receiver twos. I mean, we talked about this before, and I think it's a good process to involve. Is that your wide receiver twos on your teams are typically going to pop when your quarterback pops. So if I'm not playing Matt Ryan, that kind of necessitates that I'm not necessarily on Calvin Ridley as much. But I still think he's a good play in the slate. I anticipate having some exposure to him, but I think you can be Julio Jones and have a great game, and Matt Ryan not necessarily do that. So I don't mind playing a wide receiver one in a game that I'm not as interested in, like relative to some games we'll come talking about later. All right, let's move on. We've got Green Bay, another ugly one. Green Bay hosting Denver. Not much interest here again for me. Green Bay is supposed to wash Denver. 8 point favorites. Low total at 42.5. That continues to go lower. They opened at 43.5. I think we can all agree Emmanuel Sanders at 4,800 is a pretty egregious misprice. Like, I was a major doubter. Like, didn't have one best ball share of him. Wasn't taking him in season long. I didn't think there was a way he would come back from the injury, but I guess this is what DFS is for. I'm allowed to readjust, to reevaluate, and like, yeah, the dude's getting volume and making the most of it on a like not great offense. It's good, good for him. 4,800 is good value there. I don't have any other takes on this slate though, or on this game. Anyone else?
I got nothing for you.
Yeah, I'm with you on with Manny though. 4,800 is too cheap. He looked spectacular last weekend. They lost that game, but he did everything he could in his power to try to get them to put them in a position to win it. So, yeah, I like Manny at 4,800 in a game versus Green Bay where they're going to probably be behind and need him to make some plays.
Yeah, agree with that. Devontae Adams in this 42.5 point total game. Like, yeah, I like him as the number one target for Aaron Rodgers, but like the ceiling just isn't there. And like, yeah, like I like a high floor, but in my cash game lineups, it's all about running back this week. All right, next game, we've got New England facing the New York Jets. This line has moved, I swear, in the past like hour or so, because we talked about this on the Football Die Hard stream, Bobby, you and I. I don't think it was 23. It's 23 now.
Yeah, it's what's his name? Falk. What's his first name?
Luke Falk. He was he one of the old Washington State system quarterbacks, I think?
Yeah, so whatever he is, he's probably a plug and play this week because they're coming into New England. The tough thing is if you stack the Patriots, you want to run it back. My favorite play in this game, we kind of just talked about it a little bit earlier. Me and you, Kyle, is Rex Burkhead at 3,900. I just think he's in a spot to where like he should eventually not like become the main back for this team, but I feel like it happened last year during the playoffs where they relied on him a little bit more than Sony Michel because when he's on the field, he pretty much eliminates tells. So, like, he can be on the field in third and one situations, so he can be on the field in third and tens. With Sony, like, he just can run the football, so he does nothing in the passing game. Pittsburgh, they just basically stacked the box, and he couldn't go anywhere. So, for me, I like Rex at 3,900. Where are you kind of going, John, here?
Yeah, this is another game I don't have a ton of interest in. I guess really I want to have interest on the Jet side just because most of their guys are cheap. But, going into New England, it's a tough matchup. We saw how good the Patriots defense is through the first 2 weeks. It was something that we were kind of expecting, especially you, Bob, and Justin, talking about how good the Patriots defense was going to be this year. And they really are. So not a great matchup. I guess if you're multi-entering, I would target, some of the one or two of Robbie Anderson and Crowder. I wouldn't play them both just because I don't know how that quarterback is going to be. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Not a ton of interest for me on either side, really.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Although the Rex Burkhead call is sharp, and he's getting actual like air yards on his targets, which makes like his targets come at a premium relative to like some of the less talented, less used backs, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's pretty sharp, and I hope people think Sony Michel is a good play. The dude's like legitimately just not good at football. He doesn't get targets, and even like I don't get how can a dude on the Patriots get 21 carries, score a touchdown, and score 13 fantasy points?
Yeah, he's pretty much Stephen Ridley. Like when you think about it,
100%.
like obviously he has more speed. Yeah,
Where are the touchdowns then?
Yeah, where are the touchdowns? That's pretty much like
he's
my
issue there. Without touchdowns, that's what he is.
Yeah.
We should talk about Antonio Brown. At his price tag, I think he's very much in play. Edelman, Gordon, but it's like Russian roulette with these Patriot receivers. Like, who are you going to play? I don't know. It's just a tough situation. I think James White's in play also. I'm just trying to look for ways to like correlate the defense with a running back in this game. So I think my two favorite plays in the Pats offense would probably be Rex and James White.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't have much else to add. All right, let's hop into our next game. Another atrocious, disgusting blowout. I guess not as bad. Somehow, Dallas hosting Miami, 21.5 point favorites. Miami thrown in the towel after a long season. 47.5 point total, which is sort of the big discrepancy in this game, or in these two games that we talk about. Dallas, Miami is supposed to be a crushing blowout. Same with the Patriots versus the Jets, but the Jets total has gone down, or the Jets game total has gone down from 46 to 44, as opposed to the Dallas one holding at 47.5. Like, this one projects to have a lot more scoring in a game that is supposed to be equally disgusting. So I guess, how does that impact, like, you have to be more likely to run it back with somebody in that scenario where there's like significantly more scoring, right?
I mean, in general, yes.
In theory, yes. In this game, it's hard to say.
I was going to say, in this game,
yeah.
I don't know who you would even run it back with, right? Like, maybe Kenyon Drake, but I don't feel good about that. Preston Williams has been getting some burn. He's seeing volume. But again, I mean, it's nothing that I want to bank on, and don't even get me started on Devontae Parker. So honestly, I mean, I do like the Cowboys side just because we have the Michael Gallup injury opens things up for Devin Smith. He's 3,400 this week. He saw a few long targets last week's game, so he's a guy that I think a lot of people will go towards in the cheaper sub 4K range. And I really just think the biggest beneficiary of Michael Gallup being gone could honestly be Amari Cooper. So I think he's in a good spot as well against the Miami secondary that's been gashed by pretty much everybody. But what about you, Bob?
Yeah, I like the Devin Smith call. Randall Cobb's also in play with Gallup out. Amari Cooper, like, Dak is a great play as well. Like, you hit on Dak's popping in models. But for me, like, just because, like you guys said, we can't really run it back here. It's probably just going to be a Zeke thing for me. And then, I don't know, like Devin Smith, Randall Cobb, like if they make it into like my player pool in MME, that's fine. But I don't know if I'm going to go there in cash.
I love donating money to good causes. Sometimes that's bad fantasy players. And for me, 310 air yards for Devontae Parker is awfully enticing.
Oh, God. Don't do it, Kyle.
I know.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
I've heard sharp people call Preston Williams, though, which I think, honestly, like that's a better play. He's like
Preston Williams was in the Millionaire Maker last week.
Yeah,
10 points. He was in the Millionaire Maker lineup. They didn't score any points. Yeah. It was a rough week.
Hilarious that they didn't score any points and he was still in the Millie Maker. I agree, John, though, with what you said. I kind of think that this just may funnel up towards Amari Cooper. And in a slate where everybody is going to be paying up at running back, the contrarian thing, as we talked about, will be paying up at receiver. I love making Amari one of those two receivers I kind of pay up to that 7K plus range for and fade one of the top running backs. Or just, not even fade them, but just in lineups where I pay up for two receivers, you can't really get all of the running back plays. So I like Amari Cooper being one of those guys. All right, let's move on to somehow you can call this a better game. Minnesota, 9.5 point favorites, seems awfully welcoming compared to our 20-point games, but the lowest total of all the ones we've talked about, 43.5 versus the Oakland Raiders. I have one play in this. It's Dalvin Cook. It's always Dalvin Cook. They literally all they care about is running the football. They threw 10 pass attempts in the first game. They were getting blown out in the first half of their game against the Packers, and still threw like 30 pass attempts. No matter what the game script is, they want to run. If it's positive, they're going to run so many times. And Dalvin Cook is like an incredibly efficient player that does not seem to be able to come down off that efficiency. Like, he is the Tyreek Hill of running backs, and I kind of want to get in on that.
Yeah, he's really the only play for me as well. It's no surprise. 7,800. He's still affordable. He's going to see a ton of volume. Not only is he a good bet to see 20 carries, but he's honestly a good bet to see 25 plus because of the positive game script, like you said. And then he's also involved in the passing game too. 2 or 3 catches is his floor, so he's getting volume there as well. So yeah, Dalvin Cook's pretty much a smash. Cash games, tournaments, love to play. I'm really not looking anywhere else in this game unless you're playing a lot of lineups like Bob. I'm wondering if you're trying to target any of the cheaper Oakland guys again this week.
Yeah, so Waller would definitely be in play for me if I was MMEing. Just in terms of like Minnesota's hasn't been great versus the slot. I mean, hasn't been great versus tight end, and they run him out of the slot, which is something that's interesting for me. And also Xavier Rhodes is going to funnel targets off of Tyrell to into like Waller, and they're going to be behind. So I don't hate the Waller play at 4,100. But you guys hit on Dalvin, like he is the equivalent to Tyreek Hill at running back. Like if I can get to Dalvin, like I want to play him in cash, I want to play him in tournaments. He's a really strong play on the slate.
So we'll talk about Austin Eckler a little bit later, but where do you prioritize those two? Because that's kind of my third running back coming down to. Like, do you guys have any strong leans either way? Because that's like my main decision to make throughout the rest of the week is, do I try and find my way up to Dalvin from Eckler, who's 7,200, or do I just stick with Eckler?
So I can't really answer that because I want to play them both, and I'm going to do everything I can to play them both, because those are like two of my top 4 running backs of the week.
Yeah, I was thinking pay up for Christian McCaffrey and Zeke, but it's very possible that you go for those two guys. That's not a wrong answer either. That's fine.
Yeah, Eckler's usage right now is just through the roof. I think Eckler for the price, and I just feel like a lot of people will probably be more on Eckler, so it would be just easier to play him in cash games, because I do think a lot of people are going to go McCaffrey, Zeke, and Eckler if they can make it work in cash. So I think I'd prioritize Eckler for that reason, but like Dalvin's probably a good tournament pivot. And yeah, that's where you want him, right? Like tournament play, if everyone's going to go to Eckler and his ownership's going to be a little depressed because of that, like we can take advantage.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that take. So let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals going to play Buffalo. They are currently 6-point dogs. Total has moved up 2 points to 44. I kind of expect that total to continue to rise. It's a lot of sharp money, I believe, coming in on Buffalo, or on the total, excuse me. Although Buffalo's moved up a point in their favorites too. So just a lot of sharp money hitting this game. How do you guys feel about the Josh Allen-led passing attack? Because it's looked better. I'm not saying it's an elite passing attack, but John Brown looks like a good play week in, week out, every week. Plus Cole Beasley, a good PPR play, although I don't see much of a ceiling with him. So how do you guys attack this passing attack, and is there any interest in running it back with the pass-heaviest offense in the NFL running over 75% of their plays as passes? I guess that would be my question is, do you run it back with John Ross? Do you run it back with Tyler Boyd? And I guess, is Joe Mixon in play? But, no. But he's not. You can answer the question for me, but the answer's no.
Yeah, that answer is absolutely no. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the Bills have to do to get Josh Allen priced above 6K. As long as he's going to be under 6K, he's a great play, in my opinion. Just with the rushing floor, he has a floor of 30 rushing yards, and, we've seen a touchdown on the feet through the first 2 games, and that's nothing new. He was doing that when he was healthy last season. He's going to do it while he's healthy this season. So I like that play a lot, especially like you said, Kyle. Cincinnati's been throwing a lot more in the new offense this year. So this game's going to be high pace. So I like that for Josh Allen in tournaments. He's not nearly getting as much buzz this week as he did last week. And the same thing for John Allen. People view him as only a deep threat, and he is a great deep threat. But he's a good route runner too, man, and he's getting targets. He's only 5,500, so he's still a great play, I think. So I like both of those guys. That's really my main interest here. And then if you're running it back, I mean, the guy for me is John Ross. I know I'm a little bit more of a believer than you two on John Ross, but I don't know, man. I think this is his year. We'll see.
Yeah, so I like pretty much everything there, except the John Ross play. But I was on John Ross last week, and I didn't like it either. But I just was I need someone that can kind of take the top off of defense, and I wanted to stack up that San Fran game, Cincinnati game, because I thought it would be kind of lower owned. Even though it was pretty much a fish play, it ended up working out. It was a horrible play, not a good play at all, and a backdoor covered. But this week, I don't know if I love John Ross as much. I'd rather I think there's a lot of receivers that we can kind of go to. I love John Brown this week. So that's the thing is am I going to run it back? Because I think John Brown's a phenomenal play. 7 targets last week. And it's good to see the target uptick. We haven't really seen that before. Now we have the air yards. I think he's a fantastic play. He's right in the area of where Larry Fitzgerald is. He's going to be pretty chalky. He's right in the area where Demarcus Robinson is. He's where McCole Hardman is. He's where Randall Cobb is. I love John Brown. I think he's he's pretty much nearly. I'm going to be definitely overweight in tournaments. So I think you just play him as a one-off, or if you're MME, yeah, you definitely get it in John Ross there. I just don't think John Ross is going to pan out 3 weeks in a row. Maybe it's just me. I want to get off before, you know what I mean? I got lucky last week. I'm not going to push my luck.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I have John Ross bias, so I don't I don't want to give my takes when I just think he's legitimately a bad player. But then again, I don't really care.
He's not a bad player though. If you watch,
I don't care about I don't care about talent.
He's not bad
at all.
They just didn't use him correctly.
Yeah, see,
now they're using him correctly. The Bills also have a pretty good secondary. That's the other thing.
I was gonna say I don't love John Ross this week. Like going into Buffalo, I don't even want to play Tyler Boyd. I don't trust him going.
No, that's
Buffalo.
what I'm saying.
I just want to make that clear. I like John Ross long term. I don't like him this week. Just so when Kyle takes his victory lap like John Ross.
Yeah, I don't care too much about player evaluation. If player evaluation is a huge part of trying to gauge talent as part of your model for building lineups, building tournaments, you're doing it wrong. I don't care about grinding John Ross film to figure out what his footwork is like. It's just not a plus EV use of my personal time. So when I say
I don't do that. What I'm saying is I've seen YouTube highlights of John Ross because I was interested because people are going to give him an island for running the 40, who this guy is, and he wasn't terrible in college. He's put in a situation now where they have a better offense coordinator. It's not Marvin Lewis, who's his head coach, and he's in a good situation. So yeah, I'm bullish on him going forward, pretty much in the same way that John is. Yeah, I don't know about this week.
Good to have you on the team, Bob.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm indifferent. I don't really. He's fine. I think he's in that mold of air yards plus targets plus air yards. You gotta like it. One more before we get out of here on this game. Frank Gore, 4,400. I don't think we're gonna see much of Devin Singletary. If anything, he doesn't fit my build, but he's gonna be one of the highest points per dollar plays on the slate for running backs, just because he's gonna get 18, 19 carries. What do you make of this, John? I guess.
So honestly, my brain just wants to say don't play him, that you just ignore it. But watching any running back off the street play for San Francisco and just run all over Cincinnati last week was disturbing. It didn't matter whether it was Jeff Wilson, Mostert, Matt Breida. It did not matter who was in the backfield. There was gaping holes in that run defense, and it was crazy. So would I be surprised if Frank Gore had a good game? Probably not. Am I going to play him? Probably not.
I love it.
Yeah.
Right. Let's move on. We've got the game of the week by far. Not even close. We've got Kansas City versus Baltimore in KC. Chiefs 7-point favorites. Total start at 54, moved down to 53, but it's still by far and away the highest total of the main slate, I believe. My question is, how do you take the distribution of targets for Kansas City last week and parse that into who you're playing? Because I expect Demarcus Robinson will be super chalk. I think even McCole Hardman, he panned out last week. Bobby, you said he actually had a touchdown called back, so he really could have panned out. It's going to be hard to get differentiation even in this game. It feels like it's just going to be every player is a core of a lot of people's lineups. So Bobby, how do you attack this game when it's it's just the game and there's not even a second closest?
If you're MMEing, you're overweight on Mahomes every week from here on out. You kind of have to be at this point. That second quarter was absolutely, I never seen anything like it. He put that second Demarcus Robinson touchdown, right on his shoulder. I could have caught that ball, without even, it was just falling back, and he just puts it perfect on you. It was just an insane pass. Yeah, it's just going to be a fast-paced game. I like Mahomes. I like Demarcus Robinson. I like Hardman. I think Watkins is interesting from a tournament perspective just because he busted as chalk, but he also had 13 targets last week. And then Deontay Thompson, if he ends up being the starting running back with Damian Williams questionable and also Shady McCoy, he becomes pretty much a free play at that point. Yeah, I like the Chiefs side on the Baltimore side. Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown, those guys are firmly in play, as well as Lamar Jackson, who I think is absolutely fantastic. What are you thinking, John?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat as you. Lamar Jackson, between him and Mahomes, they're probably going to be the highest owned quarterbacks on the slate, and they should be. And then really, I hate to say it because of my Mark Andrews bets this season, but Mark Andrews is my favorite play on the Baltimore side when you factor in price.
Yeah, my only thought there, I actually kind of think Baltimore side is just going to be relatively underowned because they are the major road dogs. But I think we finally might see our first, like, Lamar Jackson actually has to play a real team and contend with them, like, drive in, drive out, as opposed to just crushing his opponents. So I think the volume of passing could actually be a bit higher than we expect, which for me is a boon to Marquise Brown, it's a boon to Mark Andrews, and I think like an MME play is Miles Boykin, whose snaps shot up last week after playing like they doubled last week, I believe. They basically pulled Seth Roberts out of the game to get Miles Boykin in. He's like 6'4", runs a 4.42. Is just an uber athlete who got 3 targets last week. Like it's not really like you have to have one lineup for him to be overweight because nobody's going to be on him. So I like it as an MME play.
Yeah, Miles. I think that's a sharp call with Miles Boykin. I was kind of off it, um, but I think it's pretty interesting. Mark Andrews is definitely a strong play as well. He's one of my. I think he's one of the better tight ends in the league as we've seen so far through these first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I also you said it earlier. I'm just excited to catch the. I'm just excited to victory lap Mark Andrews. That's all. I think what you said about Sammy Watkins though, like whatever like we say about him having been like a pretty mediocre player in recent memory, dude, you get 13 targets from Patrick Mahomes in a given week. You like it's a lock. He got 11 in week 1, 13 week 2, and he busted last week, so people aren't going to be nearly as on him as they should be. I think I'm going to be well overweight just like as a process play, regardless of what you think of Sammy Watkins, because targets from Patrick Mahomes are all that matters. Like those are God. All right, let's move on. Our next game on the slate we have here is it looks like Philadelphia hosting Detroit. Detroit are 6.5-point dogs. This line has moved a little bit in favor of Detroit. It's also moved down. The total has a 1.5 depending on where you're looking. This game doesn't offer much to me in terms of like tournament plays, but the value is going to be so concentrated in Philly because Deshaun Jackson already ruled out. Alshon Jeffrey has not been ruled out yet, but the prospects of him playing look slim. Dallas Goedert, for whatever volume he was getting, is injured as well. No update on him yet. It's like they have 2 to 3 guys able to catch passes. It's Zach Ertz, obviously, who's healthy, and then Nelson Aguilar, who I think got like 11 targets and hit the 100-yard bonus last week. So my question is like, how close to a lock is Nelson Aguilar for you guys? Because he's popping in models pretty consistently.
For me, Nelson Aguilar is definitely in play at 3,600. If Alshon and if Alshon's out, he definitely becomes someone who I want to target. My issue is Slay is going to be on him. So I think in tournaments that you can kind of maybe move away if you don't love it and you want to go in another direction. As we know, the bust rate for wide receivers and as chalk is around 70%. So I think he's definitely playing cash, and then in tournaments he can fade. What are you thinking, John?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think cash games, he's a complete lock. Even in tournaments, I don't hate it just because the price is super cheap and the ball's got to go somewhere. But I actually have some tournament interest on the other side. Kenny Galladay, 6,600. People, like you guys said, people aren't going to pay up at wide receiver, and they're definitely not going to stop in that mid-range. Like they're either going cheap or they're going stud. So at 6,600, Galladay I think could be maybe even under 5% owned, and we've seen this Philadelphia secondary get absolutely torched. Not just the first couple games, but even going back to last season. But most recently, Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones both had their way with them on Sunday night. So I could see Kenny Galladay being a pretty strong tournament play.
Yeah, I don't have any arguments with that. My final questions would be any interest, I guess, in the running backs, given how the running backs specifically for Philly, given how they are large favorites. They are on an efficient offense, and their passing game, like, you don't expect them to be throwing as much when they're out Deshaun Jackson, they're out Alshon Jeffrey. They might be out Go Dirt. Any interest in those?
Detroit is a really stout defensive line, so with Snacks there, probably not. And it's a running back carousel that you probably don't want a part of, I would say. How about you, John?
No, I'm in the same boat as you. The only thing that would be encouraging is Miles Sanders did see a little bit more volume this past game, ran a couple more routes as well. So he's only 3,900. If you were going to get dicey, like you said, it's a bad matchup, but he'd be the guy.
Yeah, I think we still might be a week to 2 weeks out from it being Miles Sanders time, but he'll probably sneak up on people and have a good game. I just don't know if it'll be this game or not. Another game that will have a new quarterback starting. The New York Giants are playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 6.5-point dogs to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 48-point total. This game starts with Daniel Jones, right? Given that he is, I believe, 5K, he was dominant in preseason, completed 80% of his passes, one of the highest yards per attempt in preseason for a quarterback, given a sufficient amount of volume. A lot of rushing equity in college, at least. He showed that ability that he could have a lot of rushing equity from what he did in college. Any interest in playing him or any of his weapons?
I like Daniel Jones. I don't know if I'm going to play him week one. I think the guy that I like most in the Giants offense is Evan Ingram. He pretty much is going to see all the targets. And he also busted last weekend in a similar situation. So you can kind of leverage the people that really don't pay attention. And Eli was a quarterback, and it was still a bad situation. I think Ingram's just in a good spot. Daniel Jones does a really good job of running RPO, run pass option. You have Saquon back there, you're going to bite. He's going to be throwing to Evan Ingram. I think Ingram's a great play. How about you, John? Where are you looking?
No, I'm definitely with you there on Ingram. I think he's one of the top tight end plays. He's right up there with Kelsey as the top tight end play of the slate for all the reasons you mentioned, and we're going to get some ownership leverage because he busted and burned so many people last week. So I love that play. I love Saquon, but he's obviously priced up. And then on the Tampa Bay side, if there was ever a week where OJ Howard was going to come to life, this would have to be it, right? He's only 3,800. The Giants struggle against tight ends, just like they always have. And it could be kind of a squeaky wheel situation too. Bruce Arians talked about how bad OJ Howard's been this season. Some costly penalties, had the fumble in week one. And then he came out yesterday and said the targets are going to come or the balls will come or whatever. So I don't know. I may have a tournament team or two with OJ Howard on it. So what do you think about that, Kyle?
I don't know. I'm not playing a guy who got 0 targets last week. That's I don't know. I cannot stomach that sort of not even floor, but his I don't know. I get the
his floor is 0.
Yeah, see, I don't know.
His floor is
but the
0.
thing is, I don't even know how good his ceiling is in a game where they're supposed to blow them out. This offense hasn't looked great. I don't know. I feel like you're betting on his hyper efficiency that we've seen in years past, which is fine, but I'm just not going to incorporate him into my builds.
What about Evans and Godwin? How do you guys feel in terms you have Evans as could probably be a contrarian tournament play, and Godwin's played as well as he's played. Any thoughts there?
I like them both. I do. And like you said, Evans really hasn't had the Mike Evans game yet this season, and now everybody's really big on Godwin. So especially in tournaments, we can leverage the field with some low Mike Evans ownership.
Yeah, Evans still leads this team in air yards, and I think we talked about in the beginning of the season, it wouldn't be shocking, it wouldn't be awfully surprising to see Chris Godwin come out with just looking like the wide receiver one, and I think that's sort of happened. But I still want to bank on volume, especially when I can leverage ownership. So I like Evans as a contrarian play, and Godwin is pretty much in play any week if he fits into your roster construction. I don't think he does for mine, but I don't hate it. All right, let's move on. We've got my favorite game of the slate, and a game that I anticipate to be a bit contentious. Carolina Panthers are going to visit the Arizona Cardinals. I see you guys laughing. This is going to be a good one. Since Cam Newton essentially announced out, they are saying his prospects of playing looks pretty slim. So Kyle Allen will start. The line is flipped to being 1.5 in favor of Arizona. The total did not seem to care too much, dropped from 45.5 to 45. Apparently, Vegas understands that Cam is just kind of looking like dust, which is a shame that finally they got him a cavalcade of good weapons and then his body gave out. But yeah, I don't think losing him is much of like a hindrance to this offense. So I guess let's kick off there. John, any interest in Kyle Allen, his weapons? And I guess my biggest question is, is the downgrade from Cam Newton actually a downgrade at all? Because I almost want to say it's not.
Yeah, the way Cam's been playing, it's really not a downgrade for this offense. It actually might be an upgrade, especially for the wide receivers. So I have a ton of interest, especially in cash games. And Kyle Allen, I think he's an absolute lock in cash games. And the reason why is because, this is a slate where we can use that salary to pay up at running back like we want to do because we have so many running back plays. But also, I'll basically play anybody at the minimum price if they're going up against this Arizona defense. Both of these teams are top 5 in neutral situation passing attempts. They're both going to air it out. This game's going to be super high paced. There's going to be a ton of plays in this game. We've seen what the other two teams that went up against this air raid offense did between the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Ravens. So even though it's Kyle Allen making his first start this season for Cam Newton, I still, for cash games, even if he has a terrible game, he's still going to exceed salary expectations. So I think in cash games, he's obvious. And my favorite tournament play is Curtis Samuel because there's so many reasons why I like Curtis Samuel. You guys know I've been big on him this season, but he's 8th in total air yards in the NFL. He's 2nd in most routes run this season, actually 2 more than DJ Moore. His target share is over 20%. He had 13 targets last week. And then I mentioned the matchup. The matchup is so good, and really Ian Hartitz from RotoWorld just put up a clip of all of the throws that Cam Newton missed Curtis Samuel on through the first 2 weeks. It's actually comical. If you haven't seen the tweet, go look it up because there was literally at least 2 or 3 times in both games where Curtis Samuel just was wide open and had nothing but field in front of him, and Cam wasn't even close. Per Pro Football Focus, he's actually only thrown 39% of the targets to Samuel were accurate throws. So it's just egregious. Samuel should be balling out basically these first 2 games, and the box score just doesn't reflect that yet. So he's going to be a tournament play for me every single time until he has that spike week.
Yeah, no, I think those are great calls. I love Samuel. I think he's a great play. His air yards definitely go up with a more accurate quarterback, and I feel like anyone can be pretty much more accurate than Cam at this point. Some of those throws that he was missing in that Tampa Bay game, it was really mind-boggling that he was an NFL quarterback. And there are throws that Cam's made in the past. I know he hasn't always been the most accurate quarterback, but he's definitely made those throws in the past. Makes you wonder if something's if there's something more serious going on, maybe your shoulder again or whatever. In terms of Kyle Allen, I wasn't on the play. I get the spots, unbelievable versus Arizona. But I guess if I'm gonna have to play him in cash, I'll play him in cash. If it seems like the industry's playing him, I'm gonna play him. That's pretty much. I get the spot, I get all that. It's just I don't we made the comparison to Jacoby Brissett week 1. And I just thought it was a different play because Brissett was basically he's been in the league for 3 years, going on the road, but it's not like he was going to LA, which is pretty much not a real road game. And I just think he's become more acclimated since his first season in the league. This is also Kyle Allen's 2nd game or 3rd game and that he's going to play, so that's why I'm a little hesitant, but if everyone's doing it, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm jumping right in too in cash. I'm not going to miss it. I just did the build up myself. It was the first time I looked at it. Yeah, and everyone fits. So
it's nice, isn't it? It looks nice when you build.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice build. I can't sit here and argue build. So I pretty much have everyone's cash game right on my screen. It's going to be a 1v1 at the last wide receiver position for most people. That's what it all comes down to anyways, week to week. So yeah, I don't hate Kyle Allen. I like the Curtis Samuel call. I like DJ Moore as well. McCaffrey, like if I think McCaffrey's like been hurt by the fact that Cam doesn't want to run anymore. So if Kyle Allen was mobile, is he mobile, Kyle? You seem to be the Kyle Allen truther, so you would know.
I'm a price truther. I play. I don't care about. The only truther I'm for is price up Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes to 10K. I'll still play him. I don't care. Other than that, just give me the price. No, he runs like a 4.92 and is not a mobile dude, so he will not be running. I do still think I agree though. You want like there is a correlation between being like a more efficient rusher when you have a quarterback who can take some of those linebackers' eyes off of you. That's like statistically proven. So I agree with that. That Cam Newton, the fact that he's run 5 times this year for -3 yards, really does not help Christian McCaffrey. And Kyle Allen doesn't add anything in that respect, but he does add like just a more efficient offense at this point. Like I'm set on saying Cam was anchoring this offense down. Just because,
Cam was so bad that they literally ran the Wildcat with the game on the line. They didn't even put the ball in his hands.
Yeah, like
so that's
Cam is a good quarterback whose body gave out on him, and now he's not. Like old OG Cam, great quarterback, good passer, great rusher. Like he could throw a nice deep ball. It didn't happen. Like he's just can't play this year anymore. So I'm ready to move on from this game, but I do just want to like triple down on the Curtis Samuel take. Who like I was the DJ Moore stan of our group. I'm sure
we should talk about Fitzgerald.
Oh yeah, I guess. Sorry, I'm ready to move on from this team. Excuse me. Last week, Curtis Samuel 234 air yards. No one's been within about 20 of that in a single game this season. So like the air yards he saw last week are like comical. Yes, let's move on to the other team in this game. I like all of the receivers. They're all popping in models. Damiere Byrd, Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, who finally had a good game last week after busting in week 1. And your other quarterback for cash games that you've talked about a lot, Kyler Murray, I think still a great play. I'm just playing the value game, but in tournaments I'm going to be well overweight on him. So I guess pitch to me the rebuttal for Kyler Murray being the cash game quarterback.
Yeah, I really liked Kyler prior to like the Cam news. I think I didn't really know about the Cam news when we hopped on Die Hard. It was just I was coming from a softball game, so I was a little behind. But yeah, I knew he was questionable, but I just figured he'd probably end up playing. But that doesn't seem like it's going to be the case. I like Fitzgerald in the slot. It's a great matchup for him. And obviously, like we've seen, they're running like 2-minute 50% of the time. Like all their receivers are getting play. And like as a secondary receiver, Damiere Byrd, little revenge narrative there. Like him as well at 3K. He's just a guy that gets downfield too. He's a burner. So I think Chess is okay. Used him in the World Championship like 2 years ago and ended up taking home all the money with like a Greg Olsen, Damiere Byrd stack. So I like him, like Christian Kirk. I think my favorite receiver would probably be Fitzgerald though at 5,100. What are you thinking, John?
Yeah, I really don't have much to add. I don't know if there is a rebuttal on Kyler Murray. He's kind of like a secondary cash game quarterback for me this week, just because he's priced under 6K right by Josh Allen. And, you know, he's essentially a lock for the 300-yard bonus on DraftKings. So, you know, the safety of that, and he hasn't even used his legs yet, if he's going to use his legs, which I assume he will. So the safety of that is enticing. So then it really comes just down to price for me. But I definitely don't hate the build if you do feel more comfortable going Kyler this week.
Yeah. I guess my final question in this game, any interest in David Johnson?
Nah.
Yeah, I think David Johnson's in play in tournaments, but just not in cash. I feel like we've taken everything from a cash game perspective. So yeah, I think he's fine in tournaments.
Tournaments, I mean, it's more like, I don't know, theoretical correlation. Like any play, like the bad play safe, I don't know. It happens. So it's harder to feel as confident. So I don't blame you. That's not like bad. All right.
What do we get next?
We got the Chargers versus the Texans. Chargers 3-point quote home favorites, 48-point total. Not really any line movement in this one, so we have some sort of sense of stability right now. Austin Eckler for me, priority in cash, 7,200. Like he must have like murdered someone on the DraftKings like pricing staff because they refuse to price him up no matter what he does. Like his usage, especially when you look at like expected points, so like down distance and the value of receptions over rushing attempts, he is one of the most used. I want to say he's like a top 4 or 5 usage guy in the NFL right now, and he's priced down to like a tier 2 or 3 back slot. Like he's the best value running back on the slate for me.
Yeah, I don't have any arguments there. I love Austin Eckler. Keenan Allen, I think, needs to be talked about. He's one of my top wide receiver plays of the week. He's only 7K, which was kind of confusing. I thought he'd at least be 7,500. In a good matchup, saw a 41% target share last week with no Hunter Henry. And he leads the NFL in air yards for the first 2 games. So Keenan Allen is like one of the top wide receivers on the slate, in my opinion.
Yeah, the two of them are getting so much usage in that offense. Like I think they're both really good calls. Both in play for both cash and tournaments. Chargers defense 2,500. My boy Mangone was touting them on one of his podcasts. I think if you're going to go down and pay down, I think they're a team that's in play. But why would you not just pay up for the Patriots in this spot versus Luke Falk? So they would be my low end defense. Would be the Chargers. And that's pretty much it for this game.
Yeah, the Chargers defense call is kind of like the Kyler Murray quarterback call, where like it's a good play, but I have my tier 1 defense lined up in New England already, and I just think they're a better play.
Yeah.
Whereas yeah, I like Kyler Murray especially in cash, but for me it's Kyle Allen, and it's the same way with this defense. Like in tournaments, I'm going to be overweight on the Chargers by a lot. But the way my builds are working out, if I can get up, and I have been able to get up to the Patriots defense, they should annihilate Luke Falk.
Any interest on Will Fuller?
Will Fuller is always in play, like just for the air yards, the tournament aspect. I don't want to use him in cash because I'm getting John Brown, who's getting 7 receptions and then getting the same amount of air yards, or just around that. So if probably more. I don't know. I don't have the list in front of me, but.
Yeah, I actually was looking at Will Fuller. I actually think he's a pretty solid play because he's a dude who's liable to go for like 150 and 2 touchdowns any given game. Whereas and he's going to be low owned because he hasn't popped yet. So for me, that's kind of I think that's a good process play, and especially given that we like his the weapons for his opponents. Specifically, we love Austin Eckler, we love Keenan Allen. If you're playing those guys, they're going to be popular. Especially Eckler is going to be particularly popular. So running him back with Will Fuller, not a bad play at all.
Yeah, good. Hopkins is in play for like the same reasoning, just because he's going to be low owned. If you want to be like contrarian in tournaments, he's DeAndre Hopkins. Like he could go for 35 to 40 at any point. So I like D Hop. Duke Johnson was popping in models as well if people are interested. So I don't know if I'd get there, but
yeah, that's interesting to me because his snaps actually I think went down this past week. But, I mean, that kind of, I guess that makes sense. They, had this high-paced Monday night game, a little slower and uglier last week, so it makes sense, I guess. All right, let's move on to another rookie, or I guess not rookie, another new starting quarterback, not a rookie, though. Teddy Bridgewater and the Saints are 4.5-point dog going to Seattle, moderate 44.5-point total. I don't know, I'm just kind of meh on this game. I don't like what Teddy Bridgewater is going to do for this offense. I think Michael Thomas is still in play. We saw last week Teddy Bridgewater just continued to pepper him with targets, as did Drew Brees before him. So that's not as concerning for me as Alvin Kamara is, where I think Drew Brees had a very specific talent for targeting running backs, which doesn't sound difficult, but it is a plus EV play, especially on early downs, I believe. So that is something that he did particularly well. And then Alvin Kamara on top of that was a guy who got a bit more air yards than your average running back. So I think Teddy Bridgewater's significant downgrade there. He's also he's basically Marcus Mariota. He throws touchdowns at a 3.2% rate and averages 7 yards per attempt. I just don't see this offense being very productive without Drew Brees.
Yeah, what if we see Taysom Hill?
Yeah, we talked about this. We will see Taysom Hill. I'm sure we will see some Taysom Hill because you see him on a regular game every now and then. The fact that they're running with their backup quarterback, we're going to see more Taysom Hill, which also, if you had any interest in playing Teddy Bridgewater, is another knock. The fact that your quarterback isn't getting 100% snaps, don't play Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah,
if Taysom Hill plays, I think Kamara is a lot more in play in tournaments, or if he's going to be under center. I think it definitely changes things just because of his mobility and how he played in the preseason. I think Taysom Hill's ready to kind of step in. So I would like Kamara in that sense in tournaments. I don't know if I'd go to Michael Thomas, but I definitely like Kamara. How about you, John?
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do when we talk about tournaments is to find spots where we can get star players or people with super high upside at low ownership. And this is going to be the time. And it's a decent price on Kamara. He's only 8K, coming off a week where he was mega chalk and just absolutely burned everybody. I know the spot isn't like super great for some of the concerns that Kyle mentioned, but I mean, as a tournament player, you should have exposure to Kamara this week, in my opinion. And then Chris Carson, I just want to mention, only 5,900, but fumbles in back-to-back games. They credit him with 2 originally, and then they removed 1, so he only got 1 last week. But if he's going to keep fumbling moving forward, that's really concerning for his workload. You know, with Rashad Penny, Penny saw a lot of snaps in the second half there against Pittsburgh last week, and I think it was because of the fumble. So I thought that was worth mentioning too.
Yeah, Taysom Hill's only 4-4. So like it's going to be interesting if he ends up. I would assume Kyle Allen would still be like the cash game QB for the majority, but Taysom Hill, if he was ended up by the end of the week, it's only Wednesday. Like if he's named the starter, I think it would be an interesting pivot in tournaments off Kyle Allen.
So I have 2 things. One, I would bet anything. Like I would bet any odds that Taysom Hill won't be named the starter, like the outright starter. They could do some like shenanigans co-starters because that's kind of what they've talked about before. But the thing is, I'm not going to play a committee quarterback.
Like, yeah, no, I get that.
Taysom
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah,
that's right. Probably even if he's not the starter, he's not going to get like.
No, he's not going to get the full run. I get it. No, that's a good point.
So that's the problem. If Teddy Bridgewater rolled his ankle in warmups and they said Taysom Hill is Teddy isn't playing, I would be very if Taysom Hill ever gets the full starter treatment, very interested. That's not happening this week, so I'm not interested. Let's move on. Pittsburgh playing San Francisco. They travel west. They get a 6.5 point handicap on this team. Totals move down to 43 points. The total says this is a bad game, but I'm actually interested in a few of the plays. George Kittle, I think this is the exact process you talked about, John. If you can get star players, low ownership, and even here, low price with George Kittle, that's like the ultimate tournament play. So good call on Kamara. I actually wrote him down because I think I'll have to work him into my tournament lineups. I think the same can be said for George Kittle, which is kind of what I'm looking for at my tight end.
Yeah, I don't hate it. The only thing would be Kittle only saw 3 targets last week, which kind of concerned me. We saw Deebo Samuel get the big play there, and Marquise Goodwin has popped off week 1. So that's a little bit concerning for me. But I do think you can pick your spots here in this game, just because it really looks like Pittsburgh is just like. I don't know if they're packing it in or what, but through the first 2 weeks, they look like a bottom 5 NFL team. And now they have to come into San Fran, whose defense has looked excellent through the first 2 games. It's definitely concerning. My favorite play would be the San Fran D at home. They've generated a lot of sacks. Now they have Mason Rudolph under center for Pittsburgh, so it's definitely not the worst play. 3,200 at home, they'd be my favorite play in this game.
Yeah, I like the call. They definitely have stepped up in terms of their defense from last year. San Francisco. On the Pittsburgh side, for me, I think I'd be interested in James Washington. He'd be the only play. Would like to see Kittle bounce back for tournaments, especially if he's going to be low owned. I think it's a good spot for him. Obviously he saw 3 targets. That's kind of an outlier. I feel like the first week he caught 2 touchdowns and they weren't actually touchdowns. So I don't know. It eventually it's going to work for him. He's going to catch a touchdown. We're all going to rejoice because we're going to be on him. We're going to play him. And hopefully it's this week.
I love it. The only way out is through with Kittle. Also, Pittsburgh covers low ADOT guys egregiously with linebackers. We saw that Will Dissly scored twice because Devin Bush was trying to cover him. He got caught on a pick play against the Patriots who picked on him, and Rex Burkhead busted open for a few decent catches. So I think the way Pittsburgh covers low ADOT guys, oftentimes tight ends, but slot receivers as well, sets up well for Kittle here. I think that's about all I have for this game.
Yeah, Will Dissly had 2 touchdowns last week, so maybe Kittle will go back and get those 2 that he didn't get for us in week 1.
All right, guys. So, anything else to take away from this slate? That's the main slate. All of the games. Talked about roster construction. Some of the plays we like. Tournaments. Just play the guys and hope it goes well. I think that's pretty safe to say.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Guys, thanks for tuning in. John, Kyle, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, speaking of hopping on, thanks for hopping on the Kyle Allen bandwagon. Anything else before we go, John?
No, that's it. Good luck this week. A lot of good content dropping in the next couple days. Check it out at thefantasybros.com. Feel free to subscribe to us on Twitch. We're trying to build the Twitch following. So if you like what you hear, go ahead and hit the subscribe. It is free, or like whatever it is. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, all right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you throughout the week on the site. If you want to subscribe, that's Fantasy Bros, thefantasybros.com/membership. And we will also, John and I will probably be hopping on Sunday morning for a stream on the IG, I'd imagine.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so catch us there too. Everyone, thanks for tuning in.